This is Will with CVT. Today we're going to go through the assembly and installation of the mount hood tent. Thank you for purchasing the mount hood tent from CVT. Welcome to the CVT family. Now that you have your tent out of this box, remove all the outer packaging. Once the packaging is gone, give the top of the case a little push and let the struts do the rest. Inside the tent you will find a black ladder bag. Inside the ladder bag you'll also find the box of all the hardware. You'll also find 2 shoe bags and 2 spring rods in a long, thin bag. Inside the hardware box you will find 1 handle, 2 latches, 2 spring rod holders, 3 sets of ladder receivers for a total of 6, and all the mounting hardware necessary to mount the tent to the vehicle. You'll also find a 13mm ratcheting wrench and a 4 and a 5mm hex key. With everything out of the tent, pull down on the nylon webbing to close the tent. Then grab your handle, slide into the top channel to the center, and tighten down with the 5mm hex key. The next step will be to grab the top half of the latch. Remove the center barrel with the 4mm hex key, and then slide it into the top channel about 2 inches from the outside edge of the tent. Repeat these steps with the second latch on the other side of the tent. With the top of the shell completed, we can now move on to the bottom half. In the top channel on the bottom half of the shell, you will slide in this order: 2 ladder receivers centered and 16 inches apart. Then on each side of the ladder, 1 of the spring rod holders. That's the small black rectangle with the hole in the center at an angle. The hole will point away from the center line of the tent and line up with the grommet on the main door flap. Finally, the latches. Slide them in and leave them loose. Hook the latch over the top half, and when it's all lined up, tighten it down with the 5mm hex key. Pro tip: the first time you engage the latch, be extremely mindful of the locking plate, as it will come through the square opening on the front of the latch. With the latches and spring rod holders in place, it is now time to space out the ladder receiver. They should be centered on the tent door and 16 inches apart. If you don't have a tape measure handy, you can use the ladder to measure the gap. Once you have them placed, tighten them down with the 5mm hex key. To finish a typical setup of the mount hood, repeat these steps on the driver and passenger side channels as well. This is a typical setup. 1 pair of ladder receivers centered at each of the openings. We would use the opening to the back of the vehicle as the main entrance and use the ladder receivers to the left and right sides as the holders for the shoe bags. But this is not always the best way for each unique setup. A lot of rigs have a rear tire carrier or a spoiler on the hatch door. I'm looking at you, SUVs. Often these features interfere with the proper ladder installation on the back of the tent. If you encounter this, it's a very easy fix to install 3 ladder receivers on one side with 2 centered on the door and a third one 16 inches to the back of the tent. Then you can hang the shoe bag right next to the ladder. In the long cardboard box that ships separately from the tent, you will find 2 crossbars, 4 brackets, and a small bag of hardware containing 8 each hex head and hex drive bolts and 8 rectangular sliders. Grab 2 of the hex head bolts and the 13mm wrench and 1 bracket. Put the 2 hex head bolts through the 2-hole side of the bracket on the bottom of the bar. Line up the beveled side of the bracket to the metal edge of the crossbar and tighten down both bolts. Now that you have that tightened, grab 1 bolt and the other half of the bracket and do the same thing, tightening down the outside edge bolt just enough that when you slide it, it stays where you move it to. Then roll the bar over, adjust the bracket so it just touches the side of the tent, being careful not to damage the powder coating. When you have it there, roll it back over, finish tightening down the bolt, add the second bolt, tighten it down, roll it back over, make sure that everything is right where it needs to be, and then slide 2 sliders in each side of the top extrusion and insert a hex drive through whatever hole you would like into the rectangular slider and tighten them down to finger tight, do the other side, and then tighten them down all the way. Install of the mount hood is a pretty simple process. Imagine for this section that the steel frame is the crossbar or your roof rack. With the help of a friend or two, set the tent on the bars of the roof rack of your vehicle. Insert a bolt into the slider so the hex head is in the channel on top of the slider. Now insert 3 sliders into the back of the rail on the bottom of the tent. With the help of a friend, lift the tent and slide 2 of them into the space between the rails and a 4th one in front of the front crossbar. Add the mounting plates and the nylock nuts to finger tight. Now is a good time to check final placement, your centers, your clearances on all of your SUV hatches. Once placement is good, tighten down all 8 nylocks until the tent is secure and there's just a little bit of a bend in the mounting plate. Now that your tent is installed, you are only a few minutes away from using it. The setup process is very simple. Open the latches and give a slight lift on the handle, letting the struts do the work of opening the tent. Pull the elastic band down to the edge of the tent body. Grab your spring rods, inserting one in each of the holders, and then carefully bending them up to the grommets and the rainfly. Then crack a beverage and watch your buddies finish setting up their tents. Enjoy your tent and the outdoors. If you have any more questions or need any information, call us or email us. Welcome to the CVT family.